Hello friends and welcome. Today we are going to dump a bunch of info about Undying. He is relatively popular as a support and he's pretty strong right now, so I want to talk about what makes him good and share some of the most common mistakes I see a lot of players make. If you're playing Undying, you're looking to get a lot done in the early game because you do drop off the later the game goes, but you're going to start as one of the strongest, if not the strongest laner in the game. You absolutely destroy melee and strength heroes, especially with Decay. Get level 2 pretty quickly because it's pretty much a free kill. You use Decay a couple times, you use the Tombstone with a blood grenade, they are slowed with a bunch of little zombies hitting them, giant zombie and Undying hitting them, and in most pub games that's going to get you a very quick kill to start off your lane. If you can't get a kill for whatever reason, especially versus mobile heroes who have like escapes, you like to run people down so they just blink away. Doesn't really lead to a kill, but they're leaving the lane and you have extra damage from Decay, so you just deny creeps in their face to get a quick level advantage. One of the biggest mistakes you'll see from Undying players is that they'll chase the support around, which that can happen on any support hero, but especially for Undying, who is such a strong laner, you really want to try to focus the offlaner. That's who we're looking to shut down, especially these level 1, level 2 times. This is peak Undying time to just bully the enemy offlaner, prevent them from getting CS, possibly kill them. And if you're chasing a support in the jungle, that's actually winning for the offlane. They are staying away from Undying and they are taking the one-on-one matchup with your carry, which is probably better than a 2-on-2 with Undying in the lane. So don't get distracted too much, don't try to do too many pulls, just stick in the lane as much as you can and just beat up the offlaner. Because of that, it's actually really common to creep drag against Undying if it's a pretty high ranked game. So if you take a look at some pro matches and you're like, oh, this is so weird, it's not what Zach talked about, it's because the high level players know it's so tough to play versus Undying that they just try to completely avoid the laning stage and they'll creep drag things around. We might talk about this later in the video. Let's see how long it goes. You don't have to worry about this too much, especially in Divine and lower, because creep dragging doesn't really happen in pub games. A lot of people don't know how to do it and they'll probably mess it up while trying. So you don't really have to worry about this on Undying, but if you do happen to see it a little bit more, this is why. It's because Undying is terrible to lane against, which is why don't give them free lanes, focus the offlaner, stay in the lane, and bully people. Off of a strong early game, you are really good in fights. Not only should you have been winning the lanes, but your abilities are just really strong. Decay and Tombstone, along with your ultimate, are very powerful. Tombstone can also be used to clear jungle stacks, so if you can't find a fight, they're avoiding you, you've already taken some towers. If your own team has stacks, but not the best stack clearers, the Tombstone spawns a bunch of zombies around all the creeps, so it makes it a lot easier to clear the creeps, but you can do the same thing versus the enemy team. If they've been stacking their jungle, feel free to run in, use the Tombstone to farm it up. It kind of depends on the amount of stacks, but typically the triangle is worth stealing, and any jungle camp that has like 3 or more, I would say, is pretty worthwhile to steal. Tombstone plus Decay will help you out there. The ultimate plus Tombstone also allows for early Roche. I know this will also be a hard one to push in your pub games, but because you keep spawning zombies and because your ultimate gives damage amp, it actually really speeds up Roshan and you can do it a lot sooner than you might think. In the mid game, you would ideally sit behind whatever active heroes are on your team and just follow them around and doing things. If it is a really passive game, you can at least push out lanes with Decay, but if you sit behind someone farming aggressively, that can also be okay. Tombstone for vision and zone control. Don't drop it right on people. That's okay in the early and laning stage when people just don't have a lot of attack speed. But now that you're later into the game, the Tombstone will be killed really quickly. So try to put it in a spot that not only can give vision, but is difficult to get to. So on high grounds can be really good. You want the enemy to have a choice. I gotta go kill the Tombstone, but that means everyone else in the team fight's focusing me while I'm having to walk to this Tombstone and hit it. Or, okay, I'm going to ignore the Tombstone and try to focus these enemy heroes, but now I've got a million zombies on me and I'm super slowed and that hero got away. You want them to have that tough decision to make. So you're going to have to work on your Tombstone placement to force that, and it depends where the fights happen, but think about that as you get into these fights. Try not to run in first all the time. I know Undying is a melee hero and he's relatively tanky, but especially if the game go late, you are still a support. You will die pretty quickly, and you actually want to build a lot of Decay, or your soul rip stacks, use them a lot in the fight, or not stacks, but like, you know, you use it a lot in the fights, right? You actually benefit from longer fights, but not if you're dead instantly. So do be careful of that. It's a common mistake for a lot of players, just overestimating how tanky they are in the mid to late game. The shard can be used as a save, so that's pretty nifty. It has been nerfed from the past, but it's still pretty good versus some of the more popular pub heroes. In the late game, this is where you're kind of the weakest. Just everything you do is strongest in the early to mid game. But in the late game, something you do have unique to you is your innate, is an instant respawn. So even though I said you don't want to run in first and die, actually, it can be a tactical thing to do as you go later into the game, where you run in, you die first, you use Tombstone, so you have 2 Tombstones down, you instantly respawn and like TP back into the fight, and you might die again, then there's a 3rd Tombstone. So there is a tactical element of running in first and dying, but it is tricky. Even if you don't run in first and die, you do have your multiple lives. So you could go, die, respawn with the innate, die, buy back, go in again. And you just have more lives to work with on a big cooldown, so be a little careful about that. But that is a very valuable tool in the late game. This is the skill build I would recommend in most of your games. So you're going to max decay first because this is how you win the laning stage, by stealing strength and doing damage at a lower cooldown. It goes down to 4 seconds at max level, and it does double damage versus creeps. So that'll be 280 versus creeps. When the games are passive, this is how you will push in lanes and still get something done for your team. Or maybe you just farm a jungle stack, something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of cases for having a low cooldown decay being good, so I would max this first in every single game. Then Tombstone at level 2 for that kill combo we talked about. Pros will actually go full Tombstone a lot of cases and not even take a point in Soul Rip until both of these are maxed out. Sometimes they will get a point like here if they skipped it at level 4. The reason for this is that Undying wants to push early fights. You're really strong around decay, and Tombstone is the other element that is really good because 5 attacks to destroy the Tombstone is a lot in the early game. Let's say you had like 50 damage. That's 250 damage that instead of hitting an enemy hero with it, you have to hit the Tombstone, and so you're probably going to die shortly after that, especially because the zombies are hitting you in the same time. So by taking it from level 1 to level 2, the Tombstone does become a little bit more expensive, but you're going to spawn more zombies. It takes more attacks to kill the Tombstone, and the zombies actually have an ability called Death Lust, and when you level up the Tombstone, that ability gets stronger, so that when the enemy heroes drop below a certain threshold, the zombies get more attack speed and move speed to help do more damage. So the way pros like to play it is that they want to use the early decay and early levels of Tombstone to force more objectives, steal those stacks, take towers, and possibly do Roche. In pub games, you can consider Soul Rip instead at level 4. I think this can throw a lot of people off because they don't expect the Soul Rip coming out, and because the laning stage is going to happen longer. You don't get max value from Soul Rip all the time. It is a certain amount of damage and heal per unit, and then note the max units are 10. That doesn't include the target. So if you think about the laning stage and a full health creep wave shows up, right, there's 8 creeps and 4 heroes. We're one of the heroes using it on an ally or an enemy. So that means there is 11 other targets, probably as long as everything's alive, and so you get the max value out of Soul Rip. Because pub games, the laning stage goes longer, that's fine. You get a lot of max value Soul Rips. But the more you move around in the game, like at the pro level, or in pubs, just a jungle fight happens, things move around, rune fights, whatever. If there's only 3 things in the area, you get 3 creeps worth of damage or heal, or 3 heroes, whatever, units. That's not very valuable for the same mana cost and the same cooldown. Instead of a 140 heal or nuke, that sounds awesome, you end up getting 45 damage, and that's really sad for 80 mana. And that's why you don't see a lot of Soul Rips at high-level games, because there is a lot of movement, and you tend to not get the 10 max units nearby. Now, I also want to mention, you might be looking at this and say like, oh, well, if you want Tombstone because it's harder to kill, why not take the Soul Rip to heal the Tombstone? It's going to heal 4 on the Tombstone. That sounds awesome. Yes, but the attacks to destroy are based on hero attacks. The heal is based on creep attacks. So hero attacks are actually worth 4 hits on the Tombstone. So 4 creep attacks equal 1 hero attack. When this says 4 Tombstone heal up to 16 Tombstone heal, that's actually the creep attack. So it's actually 1 extra attack from a hero up to 4 extra attacks from a hero. So that's why in terms of the Tombstone staying alive, Soul Rip and Tombstone are the same. And that's why more people go for the Tombstone, which is easier to get the max value out of it, along with the stronger zombies, instead of taking Soul Rip. You will sometimes see pub players max Soul Rip. It used to be a better build. It's still somewhat okay if you take the ripped facet with it, but I don't really love it. I think it's harder to get value out of that than Tombstone, though I will admit many people underestimate the value of Soul Rip, like your opponents do, and they overcommit on your allies and you save them, or they think they're okay and they get decayed and Soul Ripped and take a ton of damage and die. So it can work. You'll actually see very similar win rates between the two facets, even though Rotting Mitts, one of them, is taking a lot more. I'm a bigger fan of that facet, and with that facet, you wouldn't really max Soul Rip, but I just want to highlight it in case you do see it. If that's the case, you probably would still do something like this and just max this first. I really wouldn't recommend skipping Decay because it's your farming tool, which is going to be very important in a pub game. Take your ultimate any chance you get. Talent, I really recommend the 40 Decay damage pretty much every single game. This is 80 damage versus creep, so that brings your Decay to 360 damage every 4 seconds on the creep wave, on jungle camps, whatever, right? So this is your farming speed when nothing is happening, which that happens a lot in pub games. For 15, you can actually choose either of these talents. Zombie damage is pretty good if the enemy can't deal with the tombstone, so they have a lot of slow attacking heroes, a lot of melee heroes, immobile heroes who can't get to the tombstone, and there's a lot of value there, especially if you have Rotting Mitts, and especially for core Undyings, but this is a support Undying video. So if you think that's the situation, you can go for this, but the default I would actually recommend is the Soul Rip, even though I was kind of harping on this earlier. That's for like the early Soul Rips. If you do go for this, finish maxing Soul Rip, because not only is every level worth more than 10 damage / heal, you also get the increased heal on the tombstone, as well as a lower cooldown. So it's actually better to finish maxing Soul Rip, then take the talent here at 16. But the reasons you would do this is that this brings up the heal, and you're a support still, right? So as the game goes on, identify who's important on your team. Like say you have a drow or a sniper sitting in the back and you just got to keep them alive. You want to just keep using Soul Rip on them to heal them up and keep them healthy. So having more value on that tends to be better. Level 20, Tombstone on Death is actually so good. Tombstone is really strong in pub games. Decay cooldown, if you were like doing Ags, Octarine, especially for like core Undyings, sure. But for support Undyings, Tombstone's actually really strong, and I would recommend this way more than Decay. At level 25, for the same reason, go Decay Tombstone attacks to destroy, because you just want your Tombstone to be even stronger. The Flesh Golem strength bonus, if you do have an Ags, and especially if you took this Decay cooldown, could be good. Again, kind of more of a core Undying talent. Support Undying is more about the value and utility of Tombstone and healing teammates and stuff like that. The item build on Undying is actually pretty flexible, so really you're just going to buy whatever your team needs, but in the early game, especially the laning stage, focus on mana because you have multiple abilities, mainly Decay, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, so you fully understand that ability, but also Soul Rip if you do get an early point in that. Your abilities turn mana into health. So you don't really need to buy as many tangos, the salve, fairy fires, things like that. You just need more mana. So get that magic stick, get some mangoes. This is what will allow you to use Decay more and to definitely have enough mana for the Decay Tombstone combo at level 2, which is the same reason you must have the Blood Grenade, because that is what seals the deal to get the kills that early. I would buy more throughout the laning stage as they become available so that you can use them every time you Tombstone. And then any extra money, you can go ahead and grab Iron Branches. They're not as important for Undying because when you steal Strength, that is you getting the early damage. Decay is how you play the lane, so your items are focused on making sure you can decay more, but Iron Branch will give you Intelligence, which will give you mana, which will help you cast more Decay, so spend the rest of your money on those. After that, if it's a really good wand game, you can get that, but otherwise, Arcane Boots is the first thing you're going to rush pretty much every single game. If they are creep dragging and avoiding you, they got really fast heroes, you can get boots so that you can move faster and chase them as well. Otherwise, go the Ring of Basilius so that you can just cast your spells more. Whichever you get first, get the other next, finish the Arcane Boots. The other reason you want Arcane Boots more than something like Tranquils and Soul Ring is that you are strong, but you're still a support. There's only so much you can do on your own. You really want teammates to work with you, and that is what helps you get stronger decays and tombstones and actually take objectives after that. So they also need to be strong enough to do things. Now, you might be able to soul rip them to heal them, but will they have enough mana to continue to fight with you? Maybe not. And that's why Arcane Boots are so good on Undying. It fills your mana needs, but also your teammates' mana needs so that everyone can just keep going. After that, like I said, you can buy whatever your team needs, but keep a couple of these principles in mind. First, you have a lot of raw HP on Undying. You steal strength with decay, you get bonus strength from your ultimate, soul rip is a bunch of healing. So you have raw HP. The more resistances you get, the more valuable all that raw HP is. So when you pick up armor, you reduce physical damage, magic resistance to affect magic damage. Those are the types of items you want because they're extra value when you keep stealing more strength, keep healing yourself, all of that. And you want to stay alive longer so that you can use those spells more because they are low cooldown. So the longer you stay alive, the more decays you can do, the more soul rips you can do, the more you can whack someone with your flesh golem, spawn another zombie, all of that. So staying alive while having enough mana is kind of the ideal Undying game plan. So after the resistances, considerations, things like that, anything that gives you mana and mana regen is very helpful to spam out your spells. And then, of course, you're still a support, so, you know, 4 staff for my teammates, Solar Crest, all that is still fine. As a default, I have mech here because your armor is pretty low on Undying, and you have 1.2 agi gain, so your armor gain is really bad. So mechanisms, pretty cheap, good for early team fights, and it gives you that armor. Greaves will be a good item later on. Glimmer Cape, of course, the magic resistance, also strong, but really any kind of early item you think is good, perfectly fine. You are a strong builder of Crimson Guard. That's not very common on position 5s, but because you're stealing so much strength, the active is pretty good. And because of the decay buffs, improving your farming speed, you actually can get to these early auras if that's your first item. Like Arcane Boots straight to Crimson Guard. Arcane Boots straight to Pipe is actually also doable. Keep it in mind, you don't have to do those, but if it is a good game for it and you have the classic offlaner who's actually just another damage dealer, you might need to consider buying the auras for your team. I'm not going to say the Aghanims isn't good, but a lot of people overvalue it, so please, you really don't need to rush this item. You don't even need to get it second, third item. It's not that strong in my opinion. A lot of these earlier items are more the ideal for Undying. Now, of course, the later the game goes, I know it can be strong, but keep in mind, Aghanim Scepter goes from 4 strength steal to 8 strength steal. So you're buying an Ags for 4 more strength steal. If it's a lot of ranged heroes, or you're sitting in the back of fights just keeping your carry alive, you're not getting a lot of decay offs, and you're getting like 4 more strength when you do. If the enemy has a bunch of melee heroes and you're up in the fray of all of it, then every time you use decay, you're hitting like 3 heroes. Now we're getting 12 strength extra per decay. That's more value. So please consider the type of game, not just, oh, I'm farmed, I'm going to get Aghanims, right? How likely am I actually hitting at least 2 heroes with every decay I cast? Because that determines the value of the Aghanims. Besides that, Shard is pretty good. You can use this as a save on Tombstone, which is really good in certain situations. Other than that, you know, just pick whatever you need. I mean, these are the most common, but really like Vlad's, sure, go for it. You know, like all sorts of stuff can work. For neutral items, really anything that gives you mana in the early game and a little bit more focus on survivability the later on the game goes, any of that is good. Special shout out to Searing Signet as your tier 2. It's at this point where there's still a lot of slower paced gameplay in a lot of pub games, and you might need to do a lot of farming. Searing Signet's really good for that. With the level 10 talent, you've already got 360 damage on decay for creeps, and then you add an extra 72 on top of that every 4 seconds. So really speeds up your farming speed, but also in fights, it's just solid damage because of how low cooldown decay is. Soul Rip will proc it too if you're like hitting someone from far away. So I'm a big fan of this one, and I like to attach like mana regen with it to just really speed up the farm. Let's go through some tips for Undying's abilities, starting with a deep dive into how decay works. Many people just play with this by feeling, but I think if you understand the mechanics of it, you can actually abuse this more or learn how to deal with it to some degree. So in Dota, the game tries to preserve the percentages of your HP and mana bar as it changes due to stat gain or raw HP, raw mana. So you see as we move this Ags in, the area the bar is at doesn't shift, that's the percentage, but the actual numbers shift. Decay is favorable to you in all cases possible. So this crown, you see it doesn't change the percentages, but when I decay, I actually gained HP there. That was actually hard to tell just for where it happened to be, but 4 strength is 88 health. So not only does your total health go up that much, but you also get the heal of 88 health. If I used it again, we go from 610 to 700. That's the 88 HP heal being added there, roughly, whatever. We estimated some numbers there. So decay is favorable to you. For the opponents, they take that 88 HP as damage, and when decay ends, I stay at the total amount. I need to take some damage to make this a little clearer. But when decay ends here, I'm at 600. I'm not going to stay at this percentage. I'm actually going to look, I'm going to be full health when this decay ends. Right here. So I'm full health because the number it was at stayed the same for me. I'm the one casting decay. So if I'm at 600 out of 700 as the decay ends, I lose the total HP, 88 HP, but my current stays the same. It doesn't maintain the percentage. And so now I am full health. That doesn't apply to enemies affected by decay. So usually if an enemy were about to heal, they might do something like drop items that give them strength or HP, and then this salve, instead of originally, this is going to heal about 400 health, which would put them like here. They manipulate their health pool, use the salve, maybe the fairy fire, wand, whatever. So then when the salve is done, they pick up these items again, and instead of the fraction they would have ended up down here, you see now we're all the way up here, and then he picks up the vitality boosters, so it stays up there. Your opponents affected by decay might think something similar, like, oh, I've lost this much HP, I'm at 120, now I'm gonna fairy fire, boom, it's practically a full heal, so when my strength comes back, I'm gonna be full health. But that is not the case. You see that the total health was at 119 out of 120, I think, and he stayed down here. Even though he was full health before, and in every other stat change would have kept him up here, decay doesn't work like that. And as an extension of that, as the Undying player with these decay bonuses, you don't have to wait for decay to end before using tangos and salves. It doesn't matter to you. So just go ahead and salve whenever you want and are free to, or tango. It doesn't matter. When decay ends, it's going to give you the best situation possible. I almost forgot to mention this, but actually the way decay can hurt you is that if you actually heal to full health. So for example, you salve now and you get to full health. We've been talking about how decay is helpful, but it can only, you can't keep max health that you don't have. So notice that my current health is 800, but as I lose these decay stacks, I'm actually going to drop down to 648. So the amount of heal I used that went over 648 ended up being a little bit of a waste. That's actually why you rarely see Undyings sitting at max HP. You actually want to be sitting below that. Now it's kind of hard to do the exact mental math, but it is 88 HP per decay stack, which for East in the landing stage, just estimate as about 100. So when I have I hit 2 heroes with decay, I want to be about 200 health away from full. So around 600 is where I want to be as these decays end. And if I'm in this situation right now, I actually don't really care about healing this amount of health, because as this decay ends in a few seconds, boom, we're pretty much full. So I have a little bit of room where maybe I could be tangoing, and especially as I take a couple more hits, but I don't want to be using a full stack of my wand. I don't want to be popping a salve, because all that heal would have gone to waste. One more thing about decay, it does hit heroes you can't see, either because they're invis or because they're hiding behind trees in Fog of War. You can just cast it. You see we still get 2 applications of decay, so 8 strength total. This can be a really good way of scouting out enemy heroes. Like say you're not sure which way they ran, left or right, there's some trees blocking you. You can decay one side and you don't gain any stacks, then you know they ran the other way, and then run through the tree line that way. But also if you're trying to kill them and they're in the trees, you don't have to worry. You can just hit it and hope you happen to kill them, or maybe you don't, but you just keep chasing and get the decay cooldown going, and then use it again after you chase a little further to finish the kill at that point. Although I talked about decay being a good farming tool, that's after you have a couple levels in it. Especially level 1 decay. It's only 20 base damage, which is fine versus heroes since you're also getting the strength steal. Versus creeps, it is 40 damage, which really isn't that much. If you think about most other AoE spells, it's like 100 damage to creep wave and you hit all of them. Really hard to fix that. You're probably shoving in the lane. For Undying, if you use decay, best case, hit 2 enemy heroes, don't hit enemy creeps. That's ideal. If you hit the creeps while getting a double decay, that's okay, because you are stealing strength from the enemies. That makes you strong. It makes them scared, so they should back off. And while they back off, just hit your own creeps. Notice, let's do a double decay here. I now have 67 damage. So if I hit all 4 creeps with that 40 base damage, to balance that out, I just now need to hit my own creeps 3 times and I'm good to go. And that's not exactly how it works. If you like get your own creep killed, that's better than like split damage amongst all creeps, whatever. Getting kind of deep into it. But that is actually important to know for Undying, so there you go. That's why it is okay to use Decay in the creep wave more than pretty much any other ability, which would usually shove out the wave so hard, but you do so little damage to creeps and get damage to fix your own creep wave that you can do it. Now, if you are going to do it, try not to do it willy-nilly, especially if you can hit 2, do it. But if it's just one hero because they're splitting up, then don't just do it whenever. At least try to hit as few creeps as possible and try to line it up with CS so that you can take it. Now, if your carry's doing it, don't do that part. But especially if it's like a range creep or, banner creeps are kind of good, go for it. If you don't get it, oh well, you tried, right? Now, with my bonus strength, I just come over and hit the creep. As soon as it drops below 50, I just hit it, deny stuff, and look, I fixed the creep wave already. Even though I decayed it a couple times, I hit my own creeps and we're good to go. And now this creep's getting low and Undying's coming to get it. So I do the decay, I get the extra strength, I hit my own range creep, they were walking up to get it, and now I chase them as they run away with all my bonus strength. Even though we're both Undying's level 2, he's affected by decay, I've got extra decay, so you see I'm at 73 damage to his 57. Now if you're new to the game, it's hard to make use of just that small amount of damage, but the better you get at the game, 10 damage is a ton to deny enemies every single time just because you have more damage. And that is why Decay is so good in the laning stage and why I really recommend focus on that. Not only getting the decays and then harassing on that time, but using it to hit your own creeps. A tip for Undying, which is true for most heroes, but especially for Undying because you're brave enough to do this in a lot of situations. If you want to attack this Riki, it's okay to draw this creep aggro because we're tanky with decay, but don't do it for free. If I attack Riki here, I draw creep aggro, but he might see me coming and just back away. Now I drew creep aggro and I didn't get to hit Riki at all. So walk into the creep wave, and then once you can actually attack your opponent, then you attack them and you draw creep aggro, but we're getting the value of the trade. I am hitting Riki as I draw creep aggro, so I take aggro, but I get to hit Riki. Oh no, not usually great to do for a lot of heroes, but because of the decay, the way it works, the fact that I'm gonna gain health, and I'm gonna be so tanky, and I'm gonna get damage to fix my own creeps, that is why Undying can do it more than most other heroes can. A lot on decay, let's talk about Soul Rip and some of your other abilities. Soul Rip, I think a lot of people don't notice because it's not a lot per unit. You actually take the health of the units affected by Soul Rip. It does not affect the target, so if I'm using it on this Undying, it doesn't take it from him. But notice when I Soul Rip, myself and my ally nearby actually lost HP. This won't matter in many cases, especially the later the game goes, but in the early game, if you are leveling up Soul Rip, you actually may run into situations where you're in a really close fight, your ally's at 100 health, and then you use Soul Rip and you rip out 50 HP from him and he gets killed by the next auto attack. So it's rare, but try to keep that in mind that it is a health cost from yourself and everyone nearby, which can help you because it can come from your opponents. Like if I do this, I actually do damage to my opponents like that. And that's why this ability can be really good in team fights. Early fights. I mean, team fights as well, but especially the early fights where it is really close and everyone has low health pools. You are turning, even if it's 14 health, right? You're doing 14 damage to your opponent while healing yourself or your ally 14 health, and then however much more for all the creeps nearby. And that is part of the turn potential. Great in the lane. That's why I'm saying, like, if you get it at level 4, it's fine. But as you get further away, you're noticing, like, we have no creeps here. I am affecting 2 units with Soul Rip, no matter who I use it on. It's 2 units, which is not very good value for the 4 skill points into it if I'm level 8, and I'm getting a fifth of the value of the spell. Not fantastic. Oh, I should mention, you can't die from the health being taken away. Even if you're really low, you'll be left at 1 HP. For Tombstone, I want to mention that it does have 900 range vision, so that's pretty good. and it doesn't affect enemies that are out of sight. So there's an Undying behind this tree. No zombies are going to spawn. Once he walks into vision, the zombies will now begin to spawn. And now if he tries to walk behind the trees, we have vision of him from the zombie, so it'll spawn more. This is what's useful in team fights, is that enemies have a hard time getting away from your team until they kill the zombies. You always keep track of them. Even if your zombies aren't doing a bunch of damage, you at least know where they're moving, their blinks are getting canceled, things like that. So you need to catch sight of them at least once, but after that, you're probably good to go. When you heal Tombstone, Soul Rip doesn't need any targets nearby. You'll always get the full heal of the Tombstone. And I want to repeat, the Tombstone heal, Tombstone actually has 20 HP at level 1 because each bar is 4 health. So when I use level 1 Soul Rip on it, I'm only gaining 1 bar of health back. That's why taking this at level 4 is often not worth it. If we're thinking about Tombstone survivability, it's pretty much the same as just leveling up Tombstone, but I don't have to use more mana. Like, it's 25 more mana per Tombstone, sure, but I don't have to use 80 mana to get that 1 extra Tombstone hit on Tombstone. Besides that, the ultimate has a lot of different effects on it, but they're all pretty straightforward. So there's no like secret knowledge here. As far as I know, if you've got something, feel free to share it down below. But it just has a lot of different effects. Read through it. Now you know about it. But I do want to talk about it in terms of the facet. So there is Ripped and then Rotting Mitt. I believe Rotting Mitts is better at the time of this video. Ripped has its place. When you take this early, you know, this is a pretty normal build for Undying at the early game. You're giving 3 strength, which isn't that great. Now, of course, if you decay people, that's going to start moving up. When you use your ultimate and you gain bonus strength, that's also going to go up. Now we're about giving, you know, like 7 strength to whoever we use Soul Ripped on, which is, it's not bad, but you'd have to have Soul Rip max to be able to, you know, spam it out. It's like 6 seconds at that point. And if you have this max, you probably don't have decay max, which means you're not getting that many decay stacks, so then you're giving less strength. It also doesn't stack, by the way, so like as you use this on your ally a bunch, it's not like they suddenly gain 5 million strength. It is just the 8 strength or whatever you're giving, so it doesn't stack. So having this maxed, that's where you don't get the most amazing value out of it. That's not to say it's bad. To be clear, it has a positive win rate. It's just less picked often, less picked. They actually both have similar win rates. So if you think it's a good game for it, which I would say you really need to protect one guy. You know, Sniper's going to win you the game. I have a Sven carry who's got to do everything, and he's going to get more damage from my strength, right? Cases like that are when Ripped could be good. But I like Rotting Mitts more because it gives you more kill potential on your opponents, which hopefully you're having a good lane, and now you can threaten enemy supports, maybe even cores on your own. But it also really helps with taking Roshan, farming extra jungle camps after a quick team fight, nothing's happening. You use the zombies that spawn to tank for you. It's very useful in a lot of cases. To show you the kill threat potential I'm talking about, Flesh Golem does have a slow attached to it, but you of course have to stand still to attack your opponents. So as you maybe find a support on your own, and we're trying to hit the Chikiro, I have bonus move speed and he gets slowed, so we can kind of keep this chase going, but he might eventually make it to tower safety, to allies, things like that. Maybe he has a 4-staff and I can't catch up to that to get the next attack in, so the slow expires and he keeps running. So this is not bad, but there is a way for him to get away depending on the situation. That's not to say he can't get away with Rotting Mitts, but Rotting Mitts will spawn the zombies, and the zombies have a slow of their own, which, if we're going Rotting Mitts and we're taking 2 points in Tombstone, our zombies also have the increased Death Lust ability, so when this guy gets below 40, they're going to go crazy and really start to kill him at that point. So with this one, when we use our ultimate and start hitting the Chikiro, not only do I slow him, but the zombies also slow him. And you'll notice the Chikiro is getting progressively slower and slower, and suddenly he's just dead because the zombies get that Death Lust proc, so he dies really quickly, and then we can move on to the next target. So I really like Rotting Mitts for pub games where you know people are out of position all the times, and you know things get wacky. So when you as the Undying player are saying like, Zach, you said good team fights early game and my team doesn't want to do that, Well, that's okay. You're near teammates in your towers, encouraging them to push, farming jungle, and when you run into, you see the support is like, oh, I'm going to move to the jungle. You can follow them, and you can potentially solo enemy supports by finding them, ulting, and even dropping the tombstone. And now Jakiro, like, he's just never getting, look how slow he is. He's like, oh, yes, I'll kill the tombstone. While he's trying to kill the tombstone, you're killing the Undying. And so now I feel you have solo kill potential, not just on supports, but depending how good of a game you've been having, you might be able to kill core heroes who are on their own as well. The last thing I want to talk about is the tombstone save that you get with the Aghanim shard. Now, you can just drop it on the ground, and then anyone on your team can right-click it to hop in. Once you're in, you're stuck for 2 seconds. You can't get out until then. If the tombstone's killed, you get stunned. So you do have to be a little careful of it. That is the nerf that came in. That ability was a little too strong at the time, so it's got these nerfs. It will kind of pseudo-grief sometimes where people don't realize you've got the shard, so make it clear when you pick up the shard, either from the Tormentor or you've bought it, so that they don't like happen to be right-clicking through a team fight and accidentally get themselves stuck in the tombstone. There's only so much you can do about that, so if it happens, don't sweat it. But what you do have to be careful of is when you use it on allies, because they will be stuck in there for 2 seconds. So if they just BKB'd and they're doing a lot of damage, they may not love being stuck in the tombstone for 2 seconds. So you do have to be careful where you click when you place the tombstone with this shard, but you can intentionally do that as a save in certain situations. So for example, duel on your anti-mage carry, who, you know, classic anti-mage carry, suddenly you save him for 2 seconds and no one can get him out of there until he decides to pop out. That's quite useful. Tombstone usually has the 2 seconds before you can leave the tombstone, but there is one way to not let that happen, and that's on the initial cast of Tombstone. So let's say, I'm not actually gonna do the lasso because it's hard for me to click all these buttons, but let's say he gets lassoed and I wanna save him, but I also don't want him stuck in the tombstone for 2 seconds. What you can do, and you have to be close enough to do this, so maybe it will still be 2 seconds anyways, you can tombstone your ally and then immediately click the tombstone yourself, and that'll force your carry out. Now, you see after that initial time, there is still that 2 seconds before we can swap places, but for whatever reason, on the initial cast, it's not there. So that is one way you can use the tombstone to immediately break something like lasso, I don't know, whatever other cases where you don't want, they got Mirana arrowed, right? Actually, they would pop out still stunned in that case, so maybe that's not a good one. But any kind of channeled stun that you can break like lasso could be good to just pop in and out. By the way, just to show, here is the hero being stunned for 2 seconds when the tombstone breaks, so you do have to be careful of that. By the way, the zombies can block certain things like hook. They can also block Mirana arrow. Oh, actually, the zombies also count towards your units for soul rip. It won't kill the zombies. Oh, all the zombies disappeared. It also won't kill the zombies, even though they technically only have like the 1 HP for whatever reason, or the 2 HP, I guess. They don't die to soul rip, but they do contribute towards the soul rip damage or heal. When people try to creep drag versus you, if that happens in a lot of your games, if you see it happening soon enough, you can either try to aggro it from the small camp to the wave, though a lot of people who know they're going to creep drag are going to already have this camp blocked, which is actually something you can do with your sentry. You don't strictly want to open this camp up and pull a lot. In fact, I would say if you intentionally leave to pull when you don't really need to, that's actually griefing yourself, something a lot of Undying players do. But if you know they're trying to creep drag, that is where you want to get this camp open so you can possibly contest with the small camp, or when it's, you know, way out far, you can do pulls to try to fix it. But don't willingly do this like, oh, the lane's in a good space, I'm going to leave. No, stay in the lane, keep bullying people. Only when they force you to do stuff like this do you then leave the lane. Now, you can grab the hard camp if possible. Here you then have a choice, depending how strong the heroes are and depending how confident you feel. You can chase the Darkseer as Undying. You're one of the strong supports to do that. And usually what they try to do is hold the lane here, depending when it meets. This case, it's actually under tower, so Undying wouldn't even have to do anything. But sometimes they get the whole wave, they keep it back here, and it's going to stay back here forever. So Undying players will come in, decay, push them off, get level 2, and it's like, oh, you try to fight me, I drop Tombstone, and like, you're not fighting me anymore. I'm getting out of here, TPing out. I forgot to say, by the way, Tombstone is 125 gold at level 1, so don't feed that shit. Be a little careful. It goes up to 200 gold at max level. It's not the end of the world if they farm it, but don't give it away for free. The other thing you can do is either zone the support or just hit your own creeps a little bit. Undying, once he realized that things were fine, backed off to go grab the next creep wave so it didn't go under tower, and brought it in. That's another thing you can do. So those are kind of your options for the creep dragging. This is pretty advanced. A lot of you won't need to do this because it's pretty rare in pub games, but I did at least want to highlight it since it is a common issue for Undying, especially the higher ranks you go. Sometimes you can crush a lane from level 1, but other times you should wait for level 2 for the tombstone. Position 4s that are long range with high damage are pretty good at just constantly poking down Undying, so you don't actually want to spend too much time chasing them because that's going to be bad. Now, he doesn't want to completely run at Beastmaster because the summons are actually also annoying to deal with, even though Beastmaster himself is susceptible to being run down. So you see this Undying as being pretty careful this level 1, just drawing the attention away from Gyro. Gyro, full health, not bothered. His last hits are maybe not perfect, but he's being given the space to do what he can, and Undying is not at risk of dying. He's just drawing attention, getting them low, setting them up for level 2 soon. So the perfect time to go is as you hit level 2, and if the creep wave is pushing with you, that is technically the best. This is very hard to orchestrate in a random pub game. If you play with teammates, it is something you can look to do to shove in this wave to hit level 2 as the final creeps die, which is what happens here. 3 creeps, range creep is left. They're going to hit level 2 off of this creep, and so then they're going to commit on this Beastmaster. So you see the blood grenade, start whacking him away. There's the range creep being downed, and then he drops the tombstone. Where you place the tombstone is important. In these kind of early fights, you can often place it pretty aggressively. It's worth money, don't feed it away, but you see that Beastmaster is pretty much in run mode, like he's dying, you know? So this kind of aggressive tombstone is giving you one of 2 things. One, Beastmaster knows he's going to die, so he has to keep running. So putting it this far forward gives you the most time for zombies to keep spawning and to kill him with zombies or just keep him slowed as long as possible. Or he goes, the tombstone's right next to me, I'm going to kill it. He kills it, he gets the gold for it, but while he's killing it, he's not running anywhere, so you guys kill him. And as long as you get a hero kill, the hero kill is always going to be worth more than the tombstone, and that's fine. You just want to be careful of feeding away tombstones for nothing, because then that's a lot of money going to the enemy heroes, and then you're stuck on a long cooldown. So you do want to be careful of that. But anytime you can definitely get the kill, or at least a really good trade, it's fine to do this type of aggressive tombstone. And off that tombstone, you see they kill the Beastmaster, and Techies, who is doing a little bit of running and harassing, he's now affected by a couple zombies, so he's actually also quite slow, and they end up with a double kill. This happens all the time. This is an advanced tactic that you can sometimes do on Undying, which is that you are heavily mana-based on how much you can get done. If you can't spam decays and then threaten the tombstone, you really don't do much. So he blew the whole mana pool, the decays, the tombstone, got the kills. He could buy a clarity and he could wait for that and then use it. He's still going to be about here. It's going to take him a long time to get the mana back. So sometimes when you see the double kills happen, Undyings will just die to the tower after. You'll give a little bit of gold to the enemy. It's not that big of a deal. You're going to respawn with full resources. You're going to come back the same time they are. And in the same way you just threatened a double kill, you can do it again as the Undying. And if the only hero who is constantly healthy in the lane is the carry, that's generally a winning formula for the laning stage. You don't have to do this kind of stuff. I know it's kind of scary to do, so depending on your rank, you don't have to sweat it. It's not something that's mandatory for Undyings, but it is something you will see Undying players do if you want to give it a try yourself. Let's talk you through one more fight. So Undying, I'm going to not show this, but he hasn't been doing the small pull very much because he wants to be in this lane. Now, this camp has been getting stacked a lot by the enemies. Undyings don't hate that. You do have to be careful because you don't want them to use the pulls to get the lane to shove out a bunch. At the same time, because Tombstone is really good at farming early camps, if you have a carry who has some kind of early AoE like Flak Cannon, you don't have to hate that the hard camp is up, because potentially off an aggressive Tombstone somewhere in this area, you can also farm this camp. And when this camp is up, when the lane does shove up, you can use this camp again to then pull your own, and that keeps you in this area a lot, which is where you want to be for the fights. If you're back here, you're not zoning the offlaner with decays and tombstones. So you will typically try to have your small camp open, but if you can use this camp, that is usually preferable for Undyings. Now, anyways, off of this, the enemies will commit to try to get a kill here. Undying getting kind of low. This is what baits people in, right? So Undying is a lot about pushing the limits, and so as you start to learn Undying, you're probably going to feed a couple times. But once you know, and enemies maybe don't know, so they try to go for this stuff, and they bait themselves. Notice Undying, he's like, oh, he jumped in, he has no escape, so boom, I'm going to use the Tombstone. Not the most aggressive position, he could cast it a little further, but in case they want to run away, because it's also like, maybe we are going to die, be a little careful in case they chase in, because Beastmaster's healthy here. So because he has the stick to bait the Beastmaster in, Beastmaster walks in a little further, so now you see these zombies building up. They're at 3. This guy barely lives thanks to some of the decay spam, and then Tombstone or Techies turns around again to try to get the Undying, but the zombies do their work, and then guess what? Gonna need my resources again, so he just dies again. So these are the kind of fights that are pretty common to see, where the enemies commit too hard and you Tombstone while healing yourself with the decay, and it tricks them in. It should get you a lot of kills in many of your games. Tombstone is really good for early tower dives, by the way. So as your team commits, you can drop it in the back to zone enemies. If they want to take the fight, they're going to be under the Tombstone the whole time. Otherwise, they might focus you and the Tombstone while your team finishes the kill on whoever, in this case, the Beastmaster. And in this case, they do manage to run away, but now you take the tower. And anytime you can get an objective or a kill with Tombstone, that's a pretty worthwhile usage. Tombstone also has good night vision. It's the same vision day or night. So on these type of fights, the Tombstone, the enemies are probably trying to retreat towards their base, so the Tombstone placement is in their way. It's going to be the longest amount of time they get while running away for zombies to spawn. But also, if they try to hide in the night running this way, this Tombstone allows you to see where people are going, and as long as 1 or 2 zombies spawn as they try to juke in trees, they have to stop and deal with the zombies, otherwise you're going to know exactly where they're going. So this is more of a vision and scouting Tombstone rather than needing damage Tombstone. The damage Tombstones happen mostly in the laning stage and in the very early game. As you progress into the mid game, like this is still kind of early game, early to mid game, this is kind of what the Tombstones become. I just need a zombie on any given hero, and now Disruptor's never getting away, Techie's never getting away. In this case, they didn't really run, but you guys get the idea. If you have Rotting Mitts and your ultimate, feel free to use them, but even just Tombstone is really good. The Tombstone itself can tank Roshan forever because Roshan hits count as a creep hit, so it is 4 hits per bar. So you see it's taken forever to kill the Tombstone. If you put the Tombstone a little further away, instead of tanking Roche with the Tombstone, it'll be the zombies. The zombies are still 1 hit to kill, so it's not the greatest, but it is 1 hit that is going onto a zombie rather than any of your teammates. The value of putting the Tombstone a little further out from Roshan, even potentially outside the pit, is that you're more likely to affect enemy heroes coming in. Do be careful that it's not just easily farmed from a long-ranged hero, but that's kind of your choice on Tombstone placement when doing Roche. Either tank Roche with the Tombstone, or place it a little further away to zone the enemies with the Tombstone while just having the zombies on the Roche. Especially if you have your ultimate available, I'd say the second option is a little bit easier to get away with, because not only will the Tombstone spawn zombies, but you will spawn zombies. So Roche is kind of always distracted by zombies, and you don't need the Tombstone to tank as much. I see a lot of melee supports like Omni Knight, Abaddon, Undying make this kind of mistake. Notice where Undying is right now. I'm a melee hero, I'm tanky, I'm going to be up here hitting the tower. You don't need to do that, guys. You still have a lot of spells that are good from the back line. Items that you have bought are good from back here. So notice he is out here not getting caught by any of the abilities, and he's just going to help the gyro as it's needed. I assume you're going to soul rip your buddy. There we go. Soul rip him, right? Stand behind him, solar, glimmer as necessary, and just stay back here. And when the team commits, then you come in. Now you can use the Tombstone after the enemies have jumped in. You're not also caught in the static storm and all this stuff. So there are times to be on the front line, but way too many people think that's all the time. And I'm telling you guys, many cases, just sit behind your cores like any other support, and use your abilities from the back line rather than have to be up front. Once you get some decay stacks, you can move a little more forward, but you don't have to be hitting the tower just because you're a tankier support than a Crystal Maiden. All right, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Thanks for watching. Bye.